The girl behind the icon. Have you ever seen a photo of Marilyn Monroe? A black and white image of her smiling brightly, wind lifting her white dress, her eyes a blend of innocence and allure. The world once adored her, adored that smile, adored those eyes, adored that name. But how many people ever paused long enough, not just to look, but to listen, to truly hear the story behind that image? Behind the radiant smile, was it really a life of joy, as flawless as her beauty suggested? Or were there long, lonely nights filled with silent tears and invisible pain? This is not an ordinary story. This is a whisper from the past, a real story, one full of hurt and hope, about a girl who became an icon, but in the process, lost herself. Before she became Marilyn Monroe, the sex symbol of America, the queen of Hollywood, the dream of millions of men and the admiration of millions of women, she was just a girl named Norma Jean. Born into a home with no father and a mother who battled severe mental illness, she grew up shuffled between orphanages and foster homes. No one truly wanted to keep her. No one truly needed her. Norma Jean grew up with a heart starved for love, always craving acceptance and recognition. While other children had mothers walking them to school, she walked alone. When people called her pretty, it didn't feel like love. It felt like being chosen, like a product being picked off a shelf. That wound never healed. It grew up with her, hidden behind layers of makeup, behind the glamour of camera flashes, behind a smile that made the world melt. When she stepped into Hollywood, Norma Jean disappeared. In her place stood Marilyn, a name that was chosen, hair that was bleached, a voice that was trained to sound soft and sweet, eyes that were taught to flutter just enough to make men lose their breath. She was no longer herself. She became America's dream, a perfectly crafted product of the entertainment industry. But you know what? Behind the glittering spotlight, Marilyn was still Norma Jean, a wounded girl living between two worlds, one of dazzling fame and one of inner darkness that had never been healed, surrounded by people who adored her but never truly understood her. She smiled when she wanted to cry. She performed for the world while her heart quietly fell apart. Every time the stage curtain closed, Marilyn faded, and only Norma Jean remained, curled up in a corner, afraid of her own mind. 60 years have passed since Marilyn Monroe left this world, but her name lives on. Her image still appears everywhere, from posters in teenage bedrooms to fashion t-shirts, from movie documentaries to high-end art galleries. People still talk about that beauty, still analyze that charm, still gossip about her affair with Kennedy, her legendary films, and her mysterious death. But what few talk about is that Marilyn was just a dream, and Norma Jean was the truth. And that truth, not glamorous, not shiny, but raw and empty, was what destroyed the dream. This isn't just a story for you to hear and forget. It's a wake-up call, a mirror to reflect back at yourself. How many times have you smiled to please the world while breaking inside? How many times have you lived as the version others wanted instead of being true to who you are? How many times have you wished to be loved simply because you never learned how to love yourself? The story of Marilyn Monroe is not just the tragedy of a movie star. It's a warning for anyone chasing success at the cost of their soul. It's the silent cry of every wounded spirit that was abandoned, overlooked, or molded into something they never chose to be. And above all, it is the story of a girl, just a girl, who longed to be loved, to be accepted, and to live without having to be perfect. A wounded childhood, Marilyn Monroe, a name that echoes like a timeless symbol around the globe. But few know that she wasn't born with that name. Before the world knew her as Marilyn, she was just a little girl named Norma Jean Mortensen. She came into this world on a bright summer day, June 1st, 1926, in Los Angeles, California, the so-called land of dreams. Yet, Norma Jean's life didn't begin like a dream. It began more like a door slamming shut before she could even take her first steps, a life greeted not with love, but with rejection. Her mother, Gladys Pearl Baker, was a fragile woman, mentally unstable, emotionally lost, and unable to care for a child. And her father, Norma Jean, never even saw his face. On the birth certificate, Gladys listed a man named Edward Mortensen, but he wasn't her real father. The truth was someone else, Charles Stanley Gifford, a man who turned his back on the child who shared his blood. He never acknowledged her, never claimed her, never said the word daughter. He disappeared like a shadow, leaving a question behind that would haunt her forever. Why didn't my father want me? From the very start, Norma Jean was a child who was unwanted. No father, no arms to protect her, no home that felt safe. She entered life already carrying the weight of abandonment, wrapped in the cold silence of a love that never arrived. When she saw other families, fathers holding hands with their daughters, laughter floating from warm dinner tables, Norma could only watch. Her eyes, even as a child, carried a sadness too deep for words. Gladys, her mother, was plagued by delusions and episodes of mental breakdowns. The instability grew so overwhelming that she could no longer take care of her daughter. Norma was placed in foster homes, moved from one family to the next. She became a child of many houses, but none that truly felt like home. Can you imagine that? Being a child who wakes up in a stranger's house, not knowing if you'll still be there tomorrow? Learning not to grow attached to anyone, because you've already figured out that sooner or later, everyone leaves. Norma learned early on that love wasn't something given. It was something you had to earn, something you had to fight for, something you only got if you smiled wide enough or behaved well enough to convince someone you were worth keeping. That's when she learned to smile, the dazzling, unforgettable smile that later charmed the world. But behind that smile lived a pain no one ever truly saw. The pain of a child who only wanted to hear someone say, "You belong here. You are loved, not for what you do, but simply for being you." But no one ever said that, not once. A life without a harbor of love, Norma Jean grew up unlike any other child. Her life from the very beginning was not granted peace or the warmth of a mother's embrace, nor the sheltering arms of a father. Her mother, Gladys, carried deep wounds invisible to most. She suffered from severe mental illness, a silent battle within herself that made Norma Jean's days filled with unpredictable turmoil. Sometimes her mother was gentle like the dawn, whispering sweet words and cherishing her with love. But there were days when she became a stranger, lost and confused, screaming or staring blankly into the void. Norma Jean didn't fully understand what was happening, but could feel that her mother was slipping away, like a broken-winged bird, unable to return home. When her mother was admitted to a mental institution, Norma Jean felt her world collapse. At only 7 years old, she faced overwhelming loneliness with no safe harbor to hold on to. She was left without family, without a home, drifting through 11 foster families, each a new chapter of hardship and pain. Day by day, she had to learn to live among strangers, rules that didn't belong to her, sometimes met with coldness and neglect, sometimes harshness that made her feel invisible. Hunger, cold, fear, and pain weighed heavily on her small shoulders. But the deepest wound was the absence of true love, the lack of someone who truly believed in her and protected her. Yet deep inside, Norma Jean never allowed herself to break. She knew life couldn't be only sadness and loneliness. She began to learn how to smile, not to hide weakness, but to create armor for herself. That smile, carrying silent pain, became her strongest weapon to walk through the darkness. That smile wasn't just the symbol of the radiant beauty she would later embody, but proof of an indomitable spirit refusing to be defeated by adversity. From the darkest nights and coldest days, Norma Jean gradually became an unquenchable flame, a flame of hope, of yearning to rise, and of strength beyond all limits. She refused to let her past define her. Instead, she turned her wounds into inspiration to become the strongest version of herself. And that is what helped Norma Jean, known to the world as Marilyn Monroe, become an immortal icon of resilience, boldness, and irresistible charm. Her story is a reminder that no matter how many hardships life throws your way, you can always choose to rise, smile, and shine in your own unique way. It is a testament to the power of an unconquerable soul, showing that each of us has the ability to transform pain into the fuel that conquers every challenge. A marriage to escape. At just 16 years old, Norma Jean found herself at a heartbreaking crossroads. The foster family who had been caring for her was forced to move away, leaving her with nowhere to turn. The looming threat of being sent back to the cold, unfeeling orphanage terrified her. Desperation pushed her to make a decision that would alter the course of her life forever. She married James Doherty, the son of their next-door neighbor. This was not a union born out of love or passion, but a strategic move for survival, a way to escape the harsh reality she faced. For Norma Jean, marriage was a lifeline. Becoming James's wife meant she could finally leave the orphanage system behind and find a semblance of stability. She stepped into the role of a traditional housewife, embracing the quiet, ordinary life that came with it. Days passed, filled with routine chores and a steady but unremarkable existence. Yet beneath the surface of this calm life, a restless spirit burned fiercely within her. Deep down, Norma Jean knew her destiny was not to be confined to the shadows of anonymity or to be forgotten in a world that never seemed to see her true worth. She was born to shine, to inspire, to captivate, even if she hadn't yet found the stage where she would do so. The year was 1944, and the world was engulfed in the turmoil of World War II. Like so many young men at the time, James Doherty was drafted into the military to serve his country. With her husband gone, Norma Jean was left alone to navigate life on her own. She found work at a parachute factory, a place where every stitch could mean the difference between life and death for a soldier far from home. This was no glamorous job, just hard, honest work. But it was a start, a way for her to survive and perhaps, in her own way, contribute to the war effort. It was at this factory that fate made its first unmistakable move. One day, a photographer came to the plant to take pictures of the workers, capturing the spirit of America during the war. When his eyes landed on Norma Jean, something about her caught his attention. Maybe it was the quiet strength in her eyes, the vulnerability mixed with resilience, or the natural glow that seemed to shine from within. He took her photograph, and with that single click of the camera shutter, a new chapter in Norma Jean's life began. This moment marked the beginning of her transformation from an anonymous factory worker into a symbol of beauty, hope, and the American dream. The images of her, captured in that unassuming factory, would soon travel far beyond those walls, sparking a journey that would take her from obscurity to international fame. But this was only the beginning. Behind the scenes of this sudden change lay years of pain, struggle, and a burning desire to rewrite her story. Norma Jean wasn't just stepping into the spotlight because of luck. She was fighting her way toward a future where she could finally be seen and heard on her own terms. The road ahead would be challenging, filled with obstacles and heartbreaks, but her spirit was unbreakable. This marriage, born out of necessity, became the stepping stone toward becoming Marilyn Monroe, a woman who would forever change the world's idea of glamour, vulnerability, and strength. And so, with courage in her heart and a camera's flash lighting her path, Norma Jean stepped forward, ready to embrace her destiny. The birth of Marilyn. In 1946, Norma Jean's life changed forever when she signed her very first contract with a major Hollywood studio. It was a moment that promised a new beginning, yet also marked the end of the girl she once was. The studio executives told her bluntly, "You need a new name, something that will stand out, something memorable, something that sparkles on the silver screen." They wanted a star, not just an ordinary girl. Norma Jean thought carefully. She wanted a name that reflected the bright future she hoped for, a name that could carry her beyond the shadows of her painful past. She found inspiration in Marilyn Miller, a beloved Broadway star from the 1920s and 30s, whose charisma had captivated audiences. Marilyn felt like a new identity, fresh, luminous, and full of promise. The studio added Monroe, her mother's maiden name, completing the transformation. From that day forward, Norma Jean Mortensen ceased to exist in the public eye. Instead, Marilyn Monroe was born, the glamorous blonde bombshell who would captivate the world. She stepped onto the stage of Hollywood with golden hair, full red lips, and a hypnotic gaze that seemed to hold endless secrets. Marilyn was more than just a name. She was a symbol, a dream, a fantasy, a living icon of beauty and charm. The world couldn't get enough of her. Fans adored her playful smile, her gentle laughter, and the vulnerability that shone through her seductive exterior. Film after film, she dazzled audiences with a blend of innocence and allure that was utterly unique. Hollywood had found its new queen. But behind the glitz and glamour, beneath the layers of makeup and the carefully crafted persona, remained the vulnerable Norma Jean, the little girl who had endured abandonment, loneliness, and fear. Marilyn's public image was bright and shining, yet inside she was still searching for something far more meaningful than fame: love, acceptance, and a place to truly call home. Her smile, the one that charmed millions, was also a shield. It hid the wounds left by a childhood without stability, the scars of rejection and hurt that fame could never erase. Marilyn was caught between two worlds: the dazzling Hollywood star everyone adored, and the fragile woman trying to heal her invisible wounds. As Marilyn Monroe's star rose higher and higher, the gap between her public persona and private self grew wider. She was a woman adored by the masses, but often deeply alone. Behind the flashing cameras and red carpets was a soul quietly yearning to be understood and loved for who she truly was, not just the icon she portrayed. This duality, this struggle between light and shadow, made Marilyn Monroe not only a legendary figure in entertainment, but also a profoundly human story of resilience and hope. She taught us that even those who seem to shine the brightest may be carrying the heaviest burdens. And in that truth lies a powerful message, that behind every star is a story, sometimes painful, sometimes inspiring, waiting to be heard. Marilyn Monroe was born from the ashes of Norma Jean's past, but her story reminds us that no matter how dazzling the outside looks, the journey to find peace and love inside is what truly defines us all. The story of Marilyn Monroe is much more than just the tale of a glamorous Hollywood icon. It is a profound journey of transformation, resilience, and the human spirit's relentless pursuit of light amidst darkness. Born as Norma Jean Mortensen, a vulnerable little girl faced with abandonment, rejection, and hardship, she endured a childhood riddled with pain and loneliness that could have broken anyone's spirit. Yet, despite the scars life imprinted on her heart, she rose, shining brightly under the unforgiving spotlight of fame. Marilyn's life reminds us that the road to success is rarely a straight or smooth path. Often, the people who seem the happiest or most dazzling on the outside carry invisible burdens within. Behind Marilyn's radiant smile and captivating gaze was a woman desperately seeking acceptance, love, and a sense of belonging. This contrast between appearance and reality teaches us an essential truth. External success, beauty, or status do not guarantee inner peace or happiness. They can mask deep wounds that need healing. Her journey is a testament to the power of courage. The courage to face a harsh past, to keep moving forward even when hope feels distant, and to believe in a better tomorrow despite repeated setbacks. Marilyn was not born with privilege or comfort. She did not grow up surrounded by unconditional love. Instead, she experienced loss and instability at an early age, yet she never allowed her origins to define her destiny. That resilience is a beacon of hope for anyone who has ever felt alone, unloved, or overlooked. What can we learn from Marilyn Monroe's life that applies to us today? First and foremost, her story challenges us to reconsider how we measure success and worth. Too often, society judges people by their achievements, looks, or popularity. Marilyn was adored worldwide for her beauty and charisma, but she struggled privately with self-doubt and emotional pain. This disconnect encourages us to practice empathy toward others, because we never truly know what battles someone is fighting behind closed doors. Secondly, Marilyn's life emphasizes the importance of self-acceptance and self-love. In a world that often tries to dictate who we should be or how we should look, she reminds us that true strength comes from embracing our authentic selves, scars, imperfections, and all. Her enduring smile, while sometimes a mask, also symbolizes her tenacity to keep presenting herself to the world, to keep shining, even when the weight of her past threatened to dim her light. Moreover, her story inspires us to redefine failure. Marilyn faced numerous personal and professional challenges, including broken relationships, public scrutiny, and emotional struggles. Yet she continually sought to reinvent herself, to find meaning and purpose despite setbacks. This persistence underscores an invaluable lesson. Failure is not the end, but a stepping stone toward growth and self-discovery. Each challenge faced and each heartbreak endured can forge a stronger, wiser version of ourselves if we allow it. Additionally, Marilyn Monroe's journey reveals the profound human need for connection and belonging. Despite her fame and adoration, she longed for genuine relationships, for someone to truly see and understand her. This highlights a universal truth. No matter our status or success, we all crave authentic human connection. The longing for love, safety, and acceptance is fundamental to the human experience. From Marilyn's life, we also learn the significance of compassion toward ourselves and others. Her struggles invite us to be kinder to those who appear different or broken. Instead of judging, we should strive to support and uplift one another, because every person's story contains chapters of pain and hope intertwined. Finally, Marilyn Monroe's story encourages us to take control of our own narrative. Despite the difficulties she faced, she made choices that shaped her identity and her legacy. We too have that power, the power to write our own stories, to rise from hardship, and to create meaning from chaos. No matter where we start in life or how heavy our burdens feel, we can choose to embrace hope, pursue our dreams, and live with courage. In conclusion, Marilyn Monroe's life is a profound reminder that our past does not determine our future. It is a call to all of us to acknowledge our pain, but not be imprisoned by it, to seek love and acceptance within ourselves and from others, to persevere through hardship with grace and strength, and ultimately to shine our unique light in the world. Her legacy is not just about glitz and glamour. It is about the human spirit's ability to endure, to inspire, and to transform. Wherever you are in your own journey, remember Marilyn's story as a source of courage and hope. Embrace your own scars, trust in your own resilience, and dare to dream bigger than your fears. Because like Marilyn Monroe, you have the power to become a star in your own life, not because of how the world sees you, but because of the light you carry within. And that light is enough to illuminate even the darkest of nights.